Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Max, and today I have a special guest on. I normally don't do interviews like this, but Allan here from Comic Collector Geek reached out to me the other day after seeing the video that so many of you have responded to. I did a video with Regie Collects Comics, which was a beautiful discussion on just kind of what the industry is looking like right now with diversity and inclusion, woke ideology and what that means, and kind of what that looks like as a whole. And Reggie invited me on to talk about all that and my thoughts. And through that, I've met a lot of really great people, such as Allan, who reached out. And so I figured, why not have him on the channel? Because we did a video over on his channel talking about the interview and discussing more in depth about some of those issues. So, Allan, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. And where can we find you over on YouTube?
So my channel is Comic Collector Geek. You can just actually now, if you just type in, it'll auto correct or to Comic Collector Geek. If you just type that in on YouTube, you can see all my content. I have like several hundred videos. Yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you were open to having this video and coming onto my channel. I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Yeah, it was my pleasure, man. It was, and it was the least I could do for someone who, because like we had said previously in the video on your channel, we were talking about basically how this can be such a divisive topic, how this can be something that really divides the masses and can really put people in a state of aggression. And for you to have the courage to reach out and go, listen, I loved what I heard, I loved what I saw, and I would love to talk more about it. It meant a lot, especially for those of you who are watching and you've seen or read some of the comments on the original video. I've been labeled everything under the sun, and some of those comments were pretty difficult to get through, pretty interesting to read. But you know what? That, like I said, that's the nature of the conversation. So Allan just said, you know what? Disregard those comments. I still want to have a conversation, and I think these are all great points to make. So with that being said, though, first of all, I can't ignore the fact that you've got a beautiful display behind you, and I keep talking about it. But for those of you who want to see Allan's content, for those of you who want to watch some of Allan's videos, I'm blown away at his collection of comic books. Like, I thought I was someone who read comic books, but he specializes in like all the way from golden age to now modern stuff. So what are some of the videos that we can find, and what are some of the things that we can watch from you?
So if you just go to my channel, like the first, just the channel page, you can see my top 50 video, which is from last year. And I'm going to do a new one. I'm just waiting for one book to come in. There's a big book that's coming in, and it's going to be near the near the top of the list.
Nice.
It's a showcase book. It's a very special showcase book that's coming in. Yeah, once I get that, I'm going to redo that video. But that will give you a sense of my collection. And some of the other videos that I've done that I think are pretty great, and I haven't actually done them for a while, but I actually did a whole segment on looking at restored comics, and actually figuring out how much a restored comic is worth. Because like a lot of people know, like when you see a Blue Label book, you can easily say, oh, that book is worth X dollars, because I can just look it up on Go Collect or, some kind of census thing, and you instantly know how much it's worth. But a restored comic, people don't really know, and I did a whole thing where you can kind of do an analysis and figure out how much those restored comics are worth. So I said, because I'll buy restored comics, and so I did a segment called "Did I Overpay?" And if you search for that on my channel, you'll see a bunch of videos where I kind of break down how much the restored version is worth compared to the Blue Label. So I thought that was
brilliant, man.
Yeah, it was quite good. Actually, that was one of the times when my channel grew the most, because people really liked that part.
I love that. Yeah, I find with a lot of channel creators and creative minds in the comic book like atmosphere is like sometimes all it takes is just that one video to blow up,
Hmm.
and you've got your fan base. You've got an established fan base now. They're here for what you're doing. So I love that. That's such a great idea too, because the restored comics are the purple label, correct?
Yes, Purple Label.
Okay. And I've seen that before where, collectors will pick up a book and they'll go, "Oh, purple, not touching it."
Yep,
Not
not
even
like
gonna deal
yeah,
with it. And, it seems like well, because some of these, restorative processes, like, some of them can be really minor, right?
yeah, very minor.
And
Um,
they'll still get that purple though.
what people don't understand is like, so I've been collecting comics for like over 40 years, and
Yeah.
I've seen the how the market has changed over that time.
Mhm.
So I grew up, hearing about somebody has like a Detective 27, right? And
Mm.
what they'll do is they'll take that Detective 27, and it'll just look like really terrible, and they'll take it. They used to take it to like a professional restorer,
Hmm.
and they would spend thousands of dollars to restore the beauty of that comic,
Right.
and that was seen as a good thing. That
Mhm.
was seen as this is what you do. If you have one of these golden age grails, you
Yeah.
take it to a professional restorer and you treat it like some ancient document, some kind of
Like a piece
thing
of
that
fine
needs
art or
to be
something.
preserved. Yeah, that needs to be
Yeah.
like kind of restored, right? And that was seen as very acceptable. And people would pay premium for restored comics. Okay, just so you know,
Wow.
it's a very
Yeah.
different way of thinking. And so when CGC came into the whole playing field, which is 20 years later, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
All of a sudden that flipped on its head. And so what ended up happening is people were like, oh, it's restored, not touching it. Don't want to be, and they only went for the
Interesting.
blue labels. So, and I can see the argument for why blue labels are like better
Yeah.
because, that
It's
nothing's been done
untouched.
to it.
It's
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it is what it is, and it's managed to somehow keep that high grade even though nothing's been done to it. So I can appreciate that, but it doesn't mean that those restored ones don't have any value. And
Yeah.
so that's really what I was looking at, and how do you determine that value? And it's and there's a lot of what I did was I actually leveraged somebody else's data analysis, and they really got into that, looking at all the sales history and
Mhm.
saying, okay, if it's this restored, this is how much it's worth versus this level of restoration. And if it's this grade versus this grade. And there's actually, I created like a chart that I used basically to say, okay, you can just take this number and multiply it by the value of the blue label, and then you'll know the value of the purple label. And it's usually a percentage.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
using that, I could sort of say, okay, this is a good buy or this is not a good buy based on what they were trying to charge for that purple label.
Right.
And there's always
That's
that
so
gamble
well
as
thought
well.
out, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
I'm very,
absolutely.
I might not seem it, but I'm actually very analytical.
Hey, and I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, like, as someone who, has grown up with and had made a career out of structure, organization, and all this stuff, I can appreciate the analytical side of things to say, "This is this way because of this," like, A plus B equals C type of thing. So I love that analysis and breakdown of those books. I think that's brilliant. And speaking of such amazing books, and just the room that you have, it was funny because I was telling Alan how great and how much I love the books behind him. If you guys can't see, if you want to zoom in or make the screen bigger, you can actually see a Fantastic Four #1. You can see an Amazing Fantasy 15, all these beautiful books. And then he starts pulling out all these incredible golden age, like the first appearance of Wonder Woman, first appearance of Dr. Fate. And I like my jaws on the ground. So unfortunately, I wish I had more time to go through more of those books, but you guys can find all of those books in that collection on his channel. He does a great job of describing each one and going through and kind of unboxing them. But kind of moving over from the topics of the books that you have, obviously we can see how passionate you are of being a person who's been collecting for 40 years and loved these books for so long, and put your time and money and effort and passion into anything from golden to modern age comic books. So now that we are entering this phase of comics where it seems to be taken over by a more activist mindset agenda, because that initially, for those of you, like I said, who don't know Alan, he had reached out to me after the Reggie Collects video. So with that, he had a lot of things that he agreed with me on, and so it was good to know that someone else also felt this way. So could you kind of speak a little bit more to that, and speak a little bit more on the aspect of where you kind of saw this happening in comic books, and where you saw kind of the degradation of the glory of what comic books used to be, I guess.
Yeah. So what I saw was, okay. So going back a little bit, when I saw your, like, I actually didn't see your video first. I saw the
Oh, that's
second
right.
part of
Mhm.
Reggie's first, and I did a response video to it because the part that I did see was the side that it was a university professor,
Mhm.
and he was really defending wokeism, and
Mhm.
he was defending this activist kind of mindset,
Mhm.
and that's important to understand. So I'll get into that in a second.
For
And
sure.
then one of my people that, like, I made a response video, I got totally like attacked and called whatever names you can call somebody. And nobody actually presented real arguments. They just, presented attacks. But
Mhm.
no, I would have loved to have seen real arguments. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
And then so one of my, honest subscribers said, "Hey, look, you should really see the other part of Reggie's
Mhm.
video," and that's how I saw your side. So I saw you as a kindred spirit in this
Mhm.
because we're both basically brutalized in the comments, and
Yeah.
I saw that kind of kinship. But to get back to your real question, and to get back to the second part of Reggie's video,
Mm.
is that university professor.
Mm.
And what I've seen, and this is something that it's a conspiracy theory, but it's also kind of it's a based on reality kind of conspiracy theory. Is there's been this sort of march within the academic setting
Mm.
for activism, that a teacher's role is not to teach kids how to think anymore. It's how to teach kids how to be activists,
Mm.
okay, and to be social justice warriors.
Mhm.
And so what has happened is you get this whole generation that has sort of been groomed and brought up this way, and that university professor kind of encapsulated it a bit, in the way he thought. And I could see that he is that activist mind. He's not
Mm.
a somebody that is looking at it from like a logical kind of like grounded sort of way. He's looking at it from the activist mindset.
Mm.
And what I've seen is you get this whole generation of people that have been sort of become these child activists or social justice warriors, and now those people are getting into the workplace, and
Yeah.
they're when they get their foot into these workplaces, they bring others in that have like-minded uh, philosophies. So what has happened is you see sort of the takeover of a lot of the big publishers like DC, Marvel, where you get these activists that have been brought on staff that are making the decisions for and pushing anyone out that doesn't agree with those decisions.
Mm.
And that's really what I've seen within comics. And there's been that real shift within comics. Like I would say as far back in the DC spectrum of the New 52,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
where they said, we're going to revision. We're going to and if you're a Marxist, it's a really great way of thinking, because you can say, well, I want to tear down the society and I want to rebuild it in my vision. That's the typical kind of Marxist way of thinking. And with comics, you can do that. You can literally rebuild a whole
retcon every story, every character, and
you can just redo the whole thing. You can change the universe. And that's ultimate power for these kind of activist people, right? So, and I want to give one kind of cute example. I wish I almost feel like I have to grab the book in order to show it. But there was a time where, back in the golden age of Batman, there's that whole relationship between Batman and Robin. Okay. And a lot of people kind of felt a little uneasy about that. Even it was mentioned in The Seduction of the Innocent, which is the thing that ended the golden age, where they said, oh, maybe it's kind of a child grooming kind of situation.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And that was actually a big deal. It was a really big deal that they thought this. Okay. So they didn't like that kind of vibe that they were getting between the relationship of Batman and Robin. So what they did is they introduced a character called Batwoman. Okay. And Batwoman was designed to be a love interest for Batman. That's her whole purpose. She's a love interest. She's somebody that's on par with Batman. Actually, in her first story, she actually foils the crime before Batman can. And she's kind of like almost like an antagonist, because she's doing his job better than he is. And but so they're on par with each other, right? So it's kind of a rivalry, but it's a romantic rivalry. And there's that kind of situation with the characters. And then you get that kind of, her arc is that she's this love interest for Batman. Now you go up into the New 52, and what do they do with her? They make her a lesbian.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, you forgot kind of the purpose of this character in the first place. It's sort of like you forgot all that history that made the character what it was. And I think that's kind of funny.
That's so interesting that you say that. It would be like, I could and maybe I'm wrong in relating it to this, but it would be like if they took Lois Lane and they said, Lois, you're not actually in love with Superman, you're in love with Jimmy Olsen or something. And it's like, no, a lot of Superman's strength comes from Lois. Like at the end of the day, he loves Lois and gets a lot of his like energy and revitalization to go back out and save the world, because he has that human connection with her. And it would take away like the character's soul.
Actually, that's a excellent example. And one thing just quickly about Lois, if you watch the Batman versus Superman movie, which actually I liked, but not many people did, the thing that was really important was Lois. Lois was actually the key to everything, because Superman is, in a way, a very scary thing. The concept of Superman is insane, because he could literally kill everybody on the planet
with like one thought. Just gone. Yep,
we're all dead. It's like, okay, don't mess with that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
But Lois keeps him human, keeps him grounded, and keeps him like concerned about us lowly people. And she's the thing that kind of is his anchor. And in the movie, she kind of like it becomes a broken anchor, and that's why there's that dynamic, right? But she's kind of a very pinnacle character, and I think a lot of the time a lot of these people that are activists don't understand that importance of that history, and they just toss it aside as if it doesn't have any meaning or any fundamental impact on the other characters in the story.
Right.
And I could see them saying, well, no, I think Lois Lane should be,
she doesn't need Superman.
Yeah, she could be a lesbian. Why can't she be a lesbian? And that would be the activist kind of position. But that doesn't work for the history of the comics. And it would almost be like a thread in a sweater that is kind of sticking out,
Mm,
if you pull that thread, and the whole sweater falls apart. And that's
yeah,
what's happened when they do these kind of switches of characters, where they don't
yeah.
understand the connection that they have to the rest of the characters, that it just kind of falls apart after a while. It doesn't make any sense.
And I really appreciate you saying that, and being on here to kind of, speak about this stuff, because we say something like this and automatically someone is going to label us or say, well, because you don't want Lois as a lesbian, you are against, or you are this, you're a phobe, or you're a
Mm-hmm.
this, or you're a that. And I don't think that that's fair, because though, you and I both agree that diversity is a good thing, diversity of
Mm-hmm.
thought, diversity of culture, diversity of our experiences. Those are all good things that can be portrayed in comics. It's to the detriment if they start to do it to established characters. So, I just wanted to reiterate and reassure that everyone, we are not the enemy. We don't want these things to be taken away. We just want the thread in that sweater, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
to continue to hold the sweater together because we love this sweater. If
Yeah,
we're staying with that analogy,
yeah,
we
yeah.
don't want that thread to be pulled and then we're left with nothing. So with you talking about kind of the Batman and Superman film, I also wanted to kind of talk to you about the newest Batman film, because I know that you and your son saw it the other night, and I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you about it. So keep in mind, everyone who's watching, this is actually the first time I'm hearing his thoughts on the show as well. If, I got some heat for my thoughts and opinions. My review, I did like a 5-minute review not too long ago. So yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, so my thoughts are actually kind of interesting on this, because I I went in worrying about Twilight.
Mm, yeah.
the
A lot of people did, yeah.
Yeah, sort of that Robert Patterson thing. And I was right about that, to worry, because he
Mm,
is that gloomy vampire.
mhm,
It's just like,
yeah.
and there is some of that character to the Batman persona, but that's not all that Batman is.
Mhm.
Um, and actually, it was another YouTuber that really kind of he phrased it a bit better than the way I'm phrasing it. It's Dave from Comic Book Collects, or Comic Book
Yeah,
Investments. Um,
yeah.
he basically said Batman is too emo, and I think that's a very good understanding of the movie, because it actually bothered me. Like, um, the whole situation between Batman and Alfred, for example, is a
Mm,
very important dynamic. Um,
100%, yeah.
Alfred is Bruce Wayne's stepfather in many
Mhm,
ways. He is that father figure to Bruce Wayne, and in the movie, um, that relationship, it seems like, Alfred acts like that. He feels like, you can sense that within Alfred, but within Batman, within the Robert Patterson, you feel like he's like that spoiled kid that doesn't appreciate the love and affection that Alfred
mm.
has given him.
Well,
He's
even
just
in
like,
the oh, I was just gonna say, even in the hospital,
yeah,
instead of, the
oh my
first,
goodness,
and for those of you who have not seen this, I apologize, this will be a little bit of spoilers, so just a
spoilers.
heads up. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this needs to be a tender moment between the two of them.
Hmm.
Alfred, I'm so glad that you're okay. I was so afraid that I was going to lose you. What, we need you back because we're going to go do this
Yeah,
and we need to fight crime and we need to fight justice. No, the first words out of his mouth are, "Why
you
did you
lied to
lie to
me.
me?" Yeah, you
Yeah,
lied to
I
me.
was like,
Like,
what?
whoa, where did this come from? And now there is a part of me that goes, okay, he's young, he's immature, he's naive, he doesn't understand yet the important dynamic of Alfred. But I don't know. I mean, year two of Batman, he's got to understand how important Alfred is to him, not
Yeah.
only as a father figure, but as the a lot of the horsepower behind Batman's operation, behind his
Yeah.
righteous cause of Gotham. So yeah, that really just hit me wrong. I was
Yeah.
like,
That
I don't know why.
there's two scenes in the movie that really hurt, like hurt me. I felt like they
Oh
kind of
yeah.
were like a slap in the face.
Mhm.
And that was one of them. The first, I was
Yeah.
like shocked when that scene happened, because the first thing I would say, like, oh my god, thank goodness you're alive.
Yeah.
That kind of like, but and Alfred is this guy that just takes it. He just takes it.
Yeah.
He's like
Yeah.
he almost apologizes. Sorry that I just got blown up for you.
Yeah, sorry it took a bomb for you, you know?
Yeah,
You
it's like,
know?
oh my goodness. There was that scene that really bothered me,
Mhm.
and there was another scene with Catwoman
Mm.
where Catwoman, they're basically talking about the fact it's a conversation between Batman and Catwoman, and they're talking about how the whole city is corrupt, it's rotten to the
Mhm.
core, and things are going to collapse. And she's like, let's just go, let's just leave, okay?
Mhm.
These, and he's like, no, we got to solve this crime, we got to deal with the problem. And she's like, well, it's just a bunch of white privileged men, who cares about them?
Mhm.
And it was that throwaway line that she said that I'm like, what is she saying? Like, that is like the most racist. First of all, that's super racist. It's like, so like, it's like modern politics, that wokeism that's
Mm.
injected. And who is she saying it to? She's saying it to the guy that is all of those things. If you think about it, he is like, he's from wealth. He's had a privileged life. He's
Mhm.
white, and he's a man. You know, and he should have responded and just went like, because it was just such an insult what she said. I was shocked by it, and I was like, man, because I was really into the mode of Gotham at that point. I was really
Yeah.
kind of engrossed in the movie, and I felt like, okay, I'm in here. I'm inside this movie, and that just was like a smack across the face, and kind
Mhm.
of discharged me from the movie. And it's like, oh, not this again. Kind of like,
It really was kind of a it was and so this was my big issue with it is, um the furthering of a story, right? Like
mm-hmm,
you and I have been reading comics forever, and words mean things. When you're trying to fit these
mm-hmm,
word bubbles, or these the text into these word bubbles, you're trying to figure out how to further this story. This character needs to say this. And the constant thing that I hear is, oh, Catwoman would say that. That's just her character, and she would say something that is naive or blah blah. If they, because it seemed like a committee line. If they were to take the white out of that line, I would
yeah,
have had no issue,
me
no
too,
issue whatsoever,
me too.
because I would have still been engrossed in the film, like you said. You're enthralled with Gotham. You're in this city with them. You're so invested in the cause, and then all of a sudden it pulls you out because of one little line, and it's
Yep.
so frustrating that they felt the need to say that because it felt so forced.
Mm-hmm,
And so I believe the one was like white privileged assholes, and if
yeah.
she just said privileged political assholes or privileged
I would
corrupt
even,
assholes.
I don't like the word privileged. First of all, I don't.
Yeah.
I actually always take a little bit of offense to the term privileged, because
Mm,
it's such a activist term. It's not.
mm.
It's a very Marxian term, believe it or
Oh
not,
yeah,
because
yeah. Like
it's like
this and
the
yeah,
bourgeoisie,
yeah.
the power dynamic thing. Um, I see privilege as a good thing. I see, like, as a parent, my goal is to give privilege to my kids, to
Mm,
give them as much privilege as I can, to make them
yeah.
the best educated, to make them have as many advantages as I can. So privilege, in my opinion, is always a good thing. That you
Okay.
build privilege into your kids. And the fact that they have this kind of Marxist kind of way of thinking,
Viewpoint.
where everybody should be here, we should all be on the equal playing field, and blah blah, that kind of, I hate that. I see it as a venom, like as a poison
Mm,
that's in our society, and I really hate it. So I I'm a little bit sensitive to that word. I don't know.
yeah.
I probably read into it way too much, but um, it's a sensitive point for me. I
No,
don't
I
know.
can definitely see because yeah, you want you as a businessman, a family man, someone who really respects and loves to make sure as a protector of the house and as a provider, you want your family to succeed. You want your kids to succeed, and you want them to have the best life possible. I mean, what parent doesn't?
Mhm.
And the best way to do that is to allow them to the opportunities to succeed, and when you have made it in society, whether you're, at a certain status or at a certain position, you can tell your kids, you can say, I've worked my ass off to get here. And this is how you do it through failure
Mhm.
or through hard work or through successes and stuff like that. So privilege only comes from I guess like privilege means that you got there without doing anything and you're just
Yeah, yeah,
privileged
yeah.
now. You've got like millions of dollars. But I think, the important thing and what a lot of activists don't understand is that in order to be privileged, like a lot of people have to work their ass off for years, for decades even to get to that
Mhm.
point. So it was very like I guess it was in Catwoman's character to say that, but
Well, I can
in so
understand her
doing
saying
so
like those rich people, or
those
that kind of
corrupt
thing. That kind of, yeah.
yeah.
I don't think she needed to inject, like it was a very activist phrase
Mm.
rather than
It
a very Catwoman phrase.
correct, yeah, it felt super modern, and it was like that didn't seem like it would be something real that would be said in that Gotham-esque
Yeah,
type of,
like
feel,
I could see
that vibe.
Catwoman, like I always see Catwoman as kind of like a Robin Hood kind of figure,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
and but without some of the without some of the good
Without
things of
some of
Robin Hood.
the yeah,
Like, take from the rich part, maybe not the other part,
and then
but
just keep it for yourself,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I always saw her in that kind of frame, um,
Mm,
and that is kind of a, uh, so I could understand her having that kind of anti-rich, or not necessarily
mm.
anti-rich, but like just like
Take
do
from the
whatever you
rich.
want to the rich people. We can
Yeah,
take from them all we want, right?
mhm.
Because if you, the actual history of Catwoman is she was a society socialite too. She was from wealth as well,
Mm.
but in the
So
original,
yeah, because now I think people would associate her on the fringes of society,
yeah,
as someone who's more, trying to make it in life, and she's
yeah,
downtrodden and all this stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So let me ask you this then. We'll kind of end on this note, but I would love to get your because I agree. I think those two moments were definitely pulled me out of the film and definitely kind of uh it didn't it wasn't the defining factor of why I didn't enjoy the film as much as I did,
Mhm.
but they were definitely portions of the film that I thought could have been done a little bit better, or with more nuance. So overall, did you think this was either a good portrayal of Batman, of Bruce Wayne, and do you think this was a good Batman film?
Okay. Overall, I would give it like a 7 out of 10. So
Okay,
I actually
yeah.
liked the movie. I would say that this was an attempt by DC to go a different direction than
Mm,
Marvel.
okay.
So Marvel has gone um, in the like very humorous, bright,
Mm,
cosmic,
mhm.
superheroes with superhero powers on top of superhero powers. It's like the bigger and better, bigger, that kind of approach. That's Marvel. Boom.
Mhm.
DC wanted to almost in this movie kind of say, we're not that.
Mm,
We are the opposite of that. We are drama. We are intensity. We are grit. We're street level. We
yeah.
are the superhero that doesn't have any superpowers. He's up against these monumental tasks, and he's more gritty. He's more of a detective, and
Mhm.
they want to kind of bring it down to that kind of level. in my opinion.
Which I appreciate because I didn't feel like they undercut it. Like they never undercut a tense scene with a
Hmm.
humorous joke or a little
Yep.
quip here and there.
Yep.
Like a Marvel thing would. They really let that scene play out. They really allowed the drama to sit there, which I
Exactly.
really appreciated. Yeah.
And they really they had very touching moments, like, and
Hmm.
true, like, dramatic moments. Not
Hmm.
like what one of the faults of Marvel is they'll have a tendency of doing the following: somebody just dies and then they'll make a joke, like,
Yeah.
they'll have like a 10-second pause, and then it's like, oh, let's make a joke. Like, no, this is, let the scene kind of play out a bit more,
Mhm.
Marvel, please. And give a little bit more, oomph to it. But Marvel, that was their way of doing it. DC, didn't even wouldn't even bother putting the joke. There would be no joke,
Right.
and it would let that drama not just play out in that moment, but linger throughout the
Mhm.
story. And I think that is the difference that they were really trying to get. I think they want
Mhm.
to establish themselves in the thing that they established within the comics themselves, that DC is dark, DC is mature,
Yeah.
DC is a very different vision of their universe versus the Marvel universe. Um,
So do you think it with all that being said, as you and I kind of both agree that it was good that it let some of those more intense scenes play out. Do you think it was a good portrayal of Batman by our man Robert Pattinson that we've been
yeah.
discussing?
So one comment that I've heard about it, and I'm actually going to push back against this comment, is
Hmm.
that Batman traditionally in the comics is usually 2 steps ahead of the villains.
Hmm.
And in this, Batman, you can sense that he's not that. He is
Yeah.
not 2 steps ahead, and he's maybe 1 or 2 steps behind.
Yeah.
The Riddler is really, this super genius who has
Mhm.
really made Batman sort of walk through his hoops, all
Yeah.
the steps that he wants him to walk through, and really, even up to, like, you know, and it's shown really early on that this is his plan. He said, "Get the rat into the light." Okay,
Mhm.
and he said that really early on, and there was a whole bunch of steps that you had to do in order to get that
And yeah.
rat in the light situation, and it showed that that's how far ahead the criminal was over Batman.
Mhm.
That he was that many steps ahead, and I see that is not something that a traditional Batman would have happen. Usually it's the
Mhm.
other way around, that Batman, he's like, oh, you look like you've got me captured, you look like you have me pinned, but really I have you where I want you. It's
Yeah.
like that role, like that twist that Batman would
Yep.
throw in. And this was kind of the other way around, where Batman is the one that's kind of being led along and a little bit behind. But I see that as not a bad thing, because I see it as a point where Batman's learning.
Mm.
And this
Yep.
is a younger Batman and a little bit more naive Batman.
Mhm.
And I don't mind that, because if we see that part of Batman, that kind of more naive version of Batman, and they build on it, where they say, well, this is how he learned. He learned from this experience with the Riddler not to make these stupid mistakes, not to
Yeah.
be so quick to do whatever action it is. Then we can sort of get that arc where we can see Batman, and he's not just a Mary Sue. He's a character that's been through the ringer and has learned from experience not to be just like, you know,
Yeah, I will say because there are rumors right now, and I haven't looked into any of this, but they're thinking that Reeves is going to have a trilogy here. That this is just the first installment of a larger trilogy. If they end up doing something where, like you said, this is his growing. These are his growing pains, where he's still
yep,
learning, he's still getting his ass kicked. He's still having these mind games and losing, and then we see him grow and have the hero's journey, if you
yep,
will.
yeah,
um this will be that would be brilliant, and I will sit back and I will applaud them and go, you guys did something that I couldn't see the big picture on, and
Hmm.
that you know, and it would be very well done if they allow him to grow into the Batman that we all know and love, which is
The hero. Yeah,
the hero. Yeah, because in this it just seemed like he was still
he's a
finding his
boy.
way. He's a
He's a boy.
boy. He's still hopeless. You know, he has no. Uh, Everyone is awful. Everything is terrible. Everything is corrupt. Why do I even try? And then at the end, I think we're slowly getting into him kind of bringing into the fact that no matter what, I'm going to die trying, but I'm going to save this city. You know, I'm going to save Gotham. That
Yeah,
kind of hopefulness at the end.
that
But
would have been nice. And I think they could have done that. That's why the scene with Alfred was such a disappointment, because
right.
that could have been like, sometimes what ends up happening is a hero needs some traumatic thing to happen in order
Mhm.
to learn a lesson. And that scene with Alfred was perfect for that. It was a perfect setup. It was like,
Mhm.
Batman, he like realized that he was looking like he was narrow tunnel visioned on the whole plan of the Riddler, that he should have been like thinking more ahead.
Mhm.
And once he realized that, he was like, oh my goodness, my home, I'm the next target. And he's going, and if Alfred is, he kind of made that realization, right? And then Alfred does get blown up. It's like, oh my goodness. And that would have been something that could really catapult him to make that hero's journey.
Mhm.
And he would be like, at the bed of side of Alfred, and said, oh, I should have been listening. I should have done things differently. I should have, been the hero that I needed to be.
Yeah.
And that was a missed opportunity, a huge missed opportunity, because it was so set up to be that.
We really only got that, yeah, towards like the third act of the like maybe the last 10 minutes, maybe the
Mhm.
last 5 minutes, where he is helping people from the wreckage, you know,
Yep.
of the flood. But I'm like, I need more than 5 minutes of a heroic, you know, any semblance of heroism. You know, give
Hmm.
me 15 minutes, give me 20 minutes, give me something more than just the end of the film.
Yeah.
So if they do the if they make him the hero in his next film of the second and third films, if that is even a thing, then I'll eat crow and I'll say, hey, you guys had a bigger plan, and I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
recognize it, you know. But until then, I think in my review I gave it a 6 out of 10. But I'll, you know, I'd probably, after like a second viewing, I'll probably give it a 7, just because of how well made it was, like just the
Oh, it's beautiful.
score.
Beautiful.
Yeah, the cinematography, like the costume design, everything was like so well done that like I don't think it's a bad movie at all, because of just the amazing feat that they have created this Gotham, this world, you know,
Yeah.
and so I don't think it's an incompetent film at all. I think it's very well done. Um, but I will kind of end things by saying I do agree with you. Those two points, Catwoman's line and the scene with Alfred, both a bit contrived, both a bit pandering, both a bit upsetting. But overall, I think the film was fine, and I
Hmm.
appreciate you coming on here and talking the film with me, because I've only heard like one of two sides. Either it's like the worst thing ever made or the best thing ever made.
Yeah.
So you know, I like having these conversations. Um, but yeah, man, Alan, thank you so much for being on today. Guys, you can find Alan at Comic Collector Geek. I'll put the link in the description below so you guys can go subscribe to his channel, because you want to talk about someone who knows their comics. This guy right here knows much more than I do and has been doing it for much longer. And that's not just modern. We're talking gold and silver, bronze, copper, all that good stuff. So I really appreciate you coming on, and for reaching out as well from the video that I did about, I think, a month ago now. But it means a lot to know that there are people out there that want to have these conversations, and I think that's super important. So yeah, I'll kind of leave it off to you. Do you have anything coming up this week, or anything that any content that I know you had a huge unboxing recently, but what can we
Yeah,
look forward to next on your channel?
that's coming up in a few days.
Great.
Actually, there's a bunch. I'm so far behind. Like, I have about 20 videos that are scheduled. So this one,
Oh,
this
wow.
massive unboxing that has so many grails in it, it's just like insane.
Oh, I can't
That's
wait.
probably a couple weeks out. But some stuff. I recommend people just watch my videos, to go back and actually watch some of the stuff, because
Mhm.
whenever I do my unboxings, I kind of get into why did I buy this random comic, like, and it's very different than speculation videos.
Right.
Like, speculation videos are kind of like, this is a hot book and blah blah. It's like that
Mm.
kind of attitude. Where I'm a collector, I'm buying things that I like and that I will keep in my personal collection.
Mhm.
And when somebody buys like that, it's very different, and it's a much truer spec, because the
It
spec
has a
is that you love
personal
that book.
Yeah, yeah, it has a
You know what I
personal
mean? Like,
significance to you,
so
and it has
so
a
I
greater
think,
value that way,
that
yeah.
that's a much more interesting spec in my mind.
I
So I
love that.
think, people. I recommend watch my videos. I'm literally showing hundreds of books. Like, if you want to see diversity in comics, watch my videos, because I show so much diversity, like, between all the different things that I love. Um, so yeah,
Especially
so
'cause I think one of your favorite characters is Wonder Woman, which is so
yeah,
rad.
yeah, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman and Vampirella is actually my number one
Yeah,
favorite.
okay.
But yeah, Wonder Woman is my number two. I like my women. Okay, I was very influenced by the 90s,
Okay.
because that's when I
Top
really got into
Cow,
collecting
Image,
strongly.
yeah.
And at the time, the hot comics were all good, bad girl art, bad girl
Mm,
comics,
mhm.
like, Lady Rawhide and Dawn
Witchblade and,
and Vampirella and Lady
mhm,
Death and all those kind of characters. So that had a huge influence on the stuff that I like. And I like sexy
nice.
women. I think it's okay to like sexy women.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah. So
That's awesome, man. Well, I love it. I look forward to, seeing more of these videos from you and these unboxings because, like you said, you bring a broad spectrum of different comic books to your channel, and each one has a different story behind it or a different meaning behind it, which I think is so cool. Rather than just, hey, MCU, so this character is going to show up in this movie, like buy this book. It's like I love this book because this story or in this book, it represents this story or has this
mhm.
character. So that's awesome. But well, like I said, thank you again for being on, guys. Definitely go check out Alan's channel, and we will see you guys in the next video. Thanks again for watching.